Good evening. Happy Sunday. When you sit where I'm sat to do these recordings and you look south on a good clear day, particularly if instead of being sat in the lounge, you're in my office, which is directly above here. As you look south, you can see right on the horizon, the very distance, just the top of it's a communications tower, one of the old TV masts. And at night, you can see the top. It's about the top 4 lights on the mast. And that mast is a mast I've always been familiar with because for as long as we've been going on church holiday, we drive past it on our way down to Charmouth. And most of the year, I don't really pay a lot of attention to it. It's just sort of there on the horizon. It's about 37 miles south of us here. And it's just there on the horizon, and it's something I sort of ignore. There's so much countryside between here and there. To be honest, it's a lot more interesting to look at the wildlife than it is to look at 4 red lights on the horizon. But this coming week, for the first time since I think the summer of 1993, instead of preparing to go to church holiday because of lockdown and social distancing and all the other things, we will not be getting ready to go on our annual church gathering down on the south coast. And so for probably the last 3 or 4 days, every time I've seen the lights on that mast at night, it's made me think about all the different experiences we've had and all the different times that we've gathered. And yes, I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss the Harvest family coming together. I'm going to miss having the opportunity to hang out in between meetings, so that we don't just do a meeting and then go about our daily lives, but we get to spend the whole week together. I'm going to miss fellowship and seeking God for his purpose for the coming year. I'm going to miss all of that. And so as I've been looking at that, I've also been thinking about a question that all of us hear a lot of recently, which is, what are you looking forward to the most when lockdown, or if you're shielding, or whatever restriction it is that you currently have in your normal living? What are you looking forward to most when it's over? When finally we've dealt with this pandemic, we've found a cure or vaccine or whatever it is that eventually will enable us to go about our lives, people keep talking about a new normal. And I suppose if the things that you're missing out on are the things that define you, then it's going to be a new normal potentially, that you have an opportunity now to reinvent yourself, to try something new, to live differently, to work in a different way, to communicate differently, to just restructure your life. We've learned a lot these last few months about the things that are actually necessary and the things that we can do perfectly well without. And then I caught myself as I was thinking about all the different things that I'm missing out on and all the things that I'm hoping will change and all the things, I began to think about this phrase, new normal. And all of a sudden, I remembered what Paul writes to the folks in Philippi. When Paul writes the book that we understand as Philippians, that letter, he's writing in the context of his expected execution. And he's writing to reassure them about who Jesus is, to reassure them about his victory in Christ. And so right out from the off, his declaration to them is, look, my life is hidden in Christ. My life belongs to him. He's my source. He's my security. He's the one that gets me through. He's the one that determines my future. And so whether I stay or I go, which is his very gentle way of saying whether I get to continue walking around on planet Earth or they execute me and I go home to glory, I know it's better for me to be with my Lord. But if he has purpose for me, that's what will define where I am. The more I think about that, the more I realize that purpose can never be something that separates us from God. And so, Philippians 1:21, these familiar words, Paul writes this: for to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain. Or it can also be translated as for to me, living is Christ, and to die is gain. As over these next few days, it's really going to come home that this year, for the first time in so many years, we're not going to be going away together and gathering with our church community and our extended church family. But the reality is that for all the practical things that I'm missing out on, I already have an experience of being content and abundant in Christ. There are a few different words that get translated as life or living in the New Testament, but the one that we have here is the superlative of it. It's Zao. To me, living or to live, Zao, is Christ. Zao is total life. It's not only having life in and of yourself, but it's thriving. It's not only you being alive, but also being surrounded by life and by the living. Zao can be described as being abundantly, vigorously, powerfully alive. It's a life like no other. One commentator writes this about it when he declares that it's the only life worthy of the name. Everything else is mere existence by comparison with Zao. And so as a Christian, what I profess, what I say is my truth, is that abundant life is only found in Jesus Christ. It's the promise that he gives us. He says, I have come that you might have life and have it more abundantly, or have it superabundantly, would be probably a simpler or a more accurate translation. To have a superabundance of life. And we have to remember that it's not some human commentator who's saying that. If you want to look at my life, you might say, well, I don't really want that life. I love things that you might not love. I get very excited about all my rusty old classic cars and my trike that's falling apart, and at the moment has a tree growing through it. You might look at that and say, well, why on earth does he like those things? And I hope that isn't an abundant life, because it doesn't look very good to me. But what I love about this standard of living is that it doesn't say for me to live is to do this list of things for Christ. And it doesn't say for me to live is for me to know this amount of information, or have studied this level of theology, or have to perfected my articulate way of communicating these truths about Christ. It doesn't say any of that. It says living, abundant, thriving, vigorous living, powerful living is Christ. And so to live at all, to live in the only way that is worthy of the name, is to have Jesus be my life. And so I've been thinking a lot about, well, what comes next? And folks who have been with us for our Sunday morning gatherings, who have been listening in on the Skype afterwards, will know that we've been talking a lot about praying and saying, God, what does it look like going forward? Because practically, there may be new functions, new seasons, new activities that God asks us to undertake. But the abundance of my life today, under lockdown, in shielding, the abundance of my life, even though I'm not going to get to travel and drive down past that mast that I can see from my window every night. The abundance of my life, even though something that I have loved and enjoyed and considered to be a real blessing for well over 20 years now, is not going to be a part of my life this year. The abundance of my life remains today, as it always has been and as it always will be. If I am in Christ, if I am really his, if I know what it is to be in his presence, then I can say, like Paul, for to me, living is Christ. Thriving is Christ. Being abundant is Christ. Being powerfully, effectively, vigorously alive is Christ. He's not just my future resurrection. He's right now the resurrection power that is at work in me. It is not just my future guarantee, but right now he is God, committed totally in all that he is to walking with me, to not leaving me alone, to guiding me, to calling me forward. And so I'm not worried about what comes next, because the one thing that is steadfast, that is unchanging, that is unshakable, is the single most important thing. It is the one thing that defines what it is to be alive. It's that today Jesus Christ is for me and not against me. He speaks forgiveness to me and not condemnation. That when I turn to him, He's ready, arms open wide. And so here's my life. I'm not frightened of missing out. Sure, it'll be fun to go to the beach with my friends. But the reality is that the joy that he promised, the abundance that he promised by the measure and the standard of his own life. You see, he didn't promise you a life like mine. He promised you a life like his. He didn't promise you that it will be full and abundant and amazing and blessed by the standard of what you or I might say, well, that seems pretty good to me. But by the standard of a God who is blessed. That life is my life right now because I'm in Christ. And tomorrow and the next day and the next month and the next year, and no matter how long this season lasts, no matter what the next season looks like, to me, living is Jesus. I don't know where you're at tonight. I don't know what your experience is. I don't know if you're listening because you're just curious, or if you're listening because this is part of your new way of doing Sundays, or if you're one of the regular Harvest folk. I don't know what your relationship to Jesus is. But whoever you are, I would encourage you to not wait for a more opportune moment, not wait for a more convenient time. To not plan in your mind all the different things that you'll be able to do just as soon as you can get out of the current restrictions. But I say the people that Jesus makes free are completely free. The people that Jesus forgives are totally free from their past. The people that Jesus walks with have no need for fear. The people who are in Christ, who've trusted him for their everything, have the abundant, glorious life that is the only life worthy of that name. Tonight, you can say, Jesus, I need you to be my life. Jesus, I need you to take away all of the mess and the regret and the fear and all the things that would have defined me in my past, all the stuff that I'm ashamed of, all the things I'm glad nobody else knows. Jesus, I need your forgiveness. I need your healing. I need your grace. I need mercy. Jesus, I don't want to go forward on my own. You know, we have a thing in our culture at the moment, fear of missing out. And then advertising companies are going, well, what about joy of missing out? And there's this big argument. Are you better off participating or not? What if you're not there? Well, it's okay if you're not. Don't put all of that. Give me Jesus, and I'm doing okay. Give me Jesus, and I'm abundant. Give me Jesus, and I'm forgiven. Give me Jesus, I have hope. Give me Jesus, I've got peace and confidence. Give me Jesus, I have someone I can go to for wisdom. Give me Jesus, I have someone who is my defense. He's my shield. He's my present help. Give me Jesus, I've got a companion who knows me and who loves me and who shares his life with me. And tonight, he's available for you as well. Whatever else your tomorrow brings, and I pray that it is a blessed tomorrow. I pray that what comes next in your life does have change in it, because change is hope. I pray that it is an extraordinary discovery of a new way to live. But above all else, I pray that you walk with Jesus, because living, real living, abundant living, God's standard living is Christ. And nothing else compares to him. God bless. I hope you have a great week. You can connect with us in the information down below. You can find all of our contact details, our social media, our website. We'd love to hear from you. If you want us to pray for you, we'd be delighted to pray for you. One little thing for you to put in your diary. Like I said, we're not doing church holiday this year. We're not all heading down to Charmouth. I think it is the first year since the summer of 1993 that we've not done a church holiday. But we've got something planned for the last week of August. So from the 24th to the 28th of August, we're going to do something online. It's going to be a little bit like a virtual church holiday, but it's going to have some new stuff in it as well. So we're going to keep you posted on that front. But if you are interested in getting involved with that, just pencil it in your diary. We'll do some live stuff in the evenings, but obviously it'll also be recorded, so you'll be able to catch up with it afterwards. And if you're someone who prays, we would really appreciate you praying into that. These new ways of interacting as a church community are quite strange and quite difficult at times, quite uncomfortable because we're not used to them. But we're going to have a go at the end of this coming month, so from the 24th to 28th of August, doing what we're going to call a virtual church holiday. But hopefully you can get involved with that, and it'll be a blessing. There'll be lots of stuff coming up probably in about 2 weeks' time. We'll have a lot of detail that we can put up onto our social media, and you can find out about that. But I'll also mention it in our Sunday night live streams. Okay, God bless, and we'll see you next week.